Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. In today's video, I want to discuss some Harry Potter fan theories that shocked J.K. Rowling. Enjoy watching. Theory number 1. Ron is Dumbledore. Supporters of this theory suggest that at some point, Dumbledore wanted to help Harry and thus used special magic, possibly a time-turner, to travel back in time and become Ron, who was meant to befriend the boy who lived. A negative reaction to such a claim is quite predictable, as it seems insane to compare these two completely different characters. But we already know that the Harry Potter universe loves to surprise us, so let's take a closer look. Maybe we can find some interesting common details. Let's start with appearances. First, both Dumbledore and Ron are tall, slim, and have long noses. From young Tom Riddle's memory in The Chamber of Secrets, we also learn that Albus Dumbledore once had a beautiful red mane. As for eye color, Dumbledore's eyes are often described as blue, which happens to match Ron's eye color, as mentioned in The Deathly Hallows. Additionally, many fans of this theory point out that both Dumbledore and Ron have a scar on their leg, which makes sense because Ron injured his leg during the events of The Prisoner of Azkaban, when Sirius Black dragged him to the Shrieking Shack. Moving on. Both Dumbledore and Ron love sweets. When we first meet Dumbledore in The Philosopher's Stone, he offers Professor McGonagall a lemon drop. This is quite similar to the scene on the train where we first meet Ron, and he offers Harry some sweets. Surely Ron would have approved of Dumbledore using candy names as the password to enter the headmaster's office. There is another point that fans of this theory can't ignore. In the books, there are many episodes and dialogues where the relationship between Dumbledore and Harry feels more like a friendship than just a headmaster-student interaction. Perhaps this is because Ron has been Harry's best friend for many years. Lastly, the Deluminator, personally invented by Albus, is left to Ron Weasley after Dumbledore's death, and it eventually helps Ron find his friends during the events of the Deathly Hallows when he hears their voices through the device. Theory number 2. Amortentia for Harry. Supporters of this theory find it highly suspicious that Harry so quickly forgot about Cho, whom he longed for during 2 years of his time at Hogwarts, and almost immediately turned his attention to Ginny Weasley. They offer the following arguments in favor of this theory. First, in Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, we learn that there's an abundance of pre-made love potions, as revealed in the 6th book. Second, there are persistent rumors that Molly Weasley herself was quite skilled in brewing Amortentia. Also, remember that Ginny is very talented when it comes to casting spells. Recall that she got into Slug Club thanks to her impressive Bat Bogey Hex. We also know that Slughorn can become very talkative when students know how to get on his good side, so it's possible that he might have shared a few potion-making secrets with the talented Ginny. This theory suggests that Ginny's actions were motivated by her desire to help Harry overcome his shyness. At a certain point, Harry noticed that Ron's sister was no longer just a funny red-haired girl, but had matured into a young woman. However, Harry wasn't in a hurry to make the first move because he feared complications with his best friend and didn't want rumors to spread about Cho. So Ginny decided to take matters into her own hands and speed up the process, the outcome of which was already quite clear. Theory number 3. Harry and Hermione are brother and sister. Supporters of this theory propose that Harry and Hermione are siblings, pointing out that from the very beginning of the saga, Hermione cares deeply for Harry and tries to protect him from many problems that arise as early as their first year. Many things suggest that the two are closely bonded, and their relationship doesn't show any romantic inclinations, but instead reflects a special familial warmth. Harry and Hermione understand each other with just a few words, something that Ron often struggles with. He sometimes doesn't immediately grasp what's being said, while Harry and Hermione seem to read each other's minds. This shows that their relationship is something more than just friendship. Rowling has always emphasized that a character's family can be identified through physical features and common traits that define a familial type, as she describes with the Malfoys and the Weasleys. However, in the story, there is no mention of Hermione having specific similarities to her parents, while Harry does have a few references, such as his untidy hair and certain facial features. Moreover, fans have turned to Rowling's drafts, in which Hermione's original last name was Puckle. Some dedicated fans have drawn an analogy between the initials HJP, Harry Hermione, James Jean, Potter Puckle, and the fact that Rowling never gives her characters random names and surnames adds to the intrigue. The surname Puckle contains the hidden meaning of weapon, which could explain the mystery behind Hermione. Theory number 4. Mary Poppins went to Hogwarts. When we think of this magical nanny, we immediately imagine her flying umbrella, moving objects, bottomless bag, and other magical items that clearly resemble the workings of magic. Seeing all of this magic-like behavior, we can't help but wonder who taught Mary all these skills, and when. Supporters of this theory confidently argue that she acquired these abilities through her education at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Moreover, fans believe she was a Ravenclaw and, after graduating, took a job at the Ministry of Magic, where she was given the important task of finding gifted children and gradually preparing them for the magical world. Given Mary's age, it's highly likely that she attended Hogwarts at the same time as Albus Dumbledore. So, what can we point out? First, many of the things Mary uses can be found in the magical world of Harry Potter. For example, Mary's bottomless bag, in which she can fit an enormous number of items, is similar to Hermione's bag in the Deathly Hallows, which she enchanted with extension charms to hold everything they needed. Mary's umbrella, where she likely hides a wand, is also a great way to secretly use magic, a trick we've seen before with Hagrid, who had to hide his wand in an umbrella as well. And let's not forget that Mary can fly using her magical umbrella, levitate objects, make things appear out of nowhere, and use a magical mirror. Mary chose not to return to the magical world because she grew too fond of the Muggle world and decided to stay in it forever. Theory number 5. Fawkes the Phoenix is Dumbledore's horcrux. There's a theory that Albus Dumbledore's famous phoenix Fawkes is actually his horcrux. But when and how was it created? One option fans propose is during the death of Ariana in the three-way duel between Albus, Aberforth, and Gellert Grindelwald. No one knows for sure who killed Ariana, but there's a high chance it was Albus. If this is true, her death could have been the event that led to the creation of the horcrux. This theory is, of course, questionable, as creating a horcrux usually requires a special ritual to bind a piece of the soul to an object. However, when Voldemort made Harry into a horcrux in Godric's Hollow, he didn't perform any ritual either, yet it still resulted in the creation, albeit accidental, of another repository for a fragment of his soul. This can be explained by the fact that by the time he killed Lily and James Potter, Voldemort had already severely weakened his soul by creating multiple horcruxes, and with the combination of Lily Potter's magic, his fragile soul couldn't handle the burden, causing another piece to split off. The idea of a phoenix horcrux is intriguing because phoenixes are immortal and regenerate after death, which means that such an indestructible horcrux could make its owner immortal and invincible. However, Rowling was reportedly shocked and upset that fans even considered the possibility that Dumbledore would resort to such dark magic as creating a horcrux. So, all speculations regarding this theory can be considered groundless. Theory number 6. The hero this school needs. This theory revolves around Draco Malfoy, the very Slytherin who was commonly seen as an enemy to Harry and his friends. However, there's a version of events suggesting that during the second movie's events, Draco was secretly helping Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Yes, Malfoy, despite his reputation, might have been playing a double game, doing so covertly and with a specific purpose. This theory is based on several moments we saw on screen but may not have paid much attention to. One key episode is the scene in Flourish and Blot's bookstore. Remember when Draco tore a page out of a book? Many fans believe this wasn't just an act of irritation or carelessness. No, they suggest that this very page later ended up in petrified Hermione's hand, and that it wasn't a random page, but a crucial clue that could help Harry and Ron solve the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets. Think about it. Hermione was always the model student who would never tear a page out of a book. It's just not her style. But what if Malfoy, realizing that the attacks on Muggleborns were becoming too dangerous, secretly passed this page to Hermione? Perhaps he wanted to help without revealing his role. Otherwise, how can we explain the fact that this critical clue ended up in Hermione's hand and no one else's? But this isn't the only intriguing moment. During the scene where Harry and Ron use Polyjuice Potion to impersonate Crabbe and Goyle, Draco behaves quite strangely. Not only does he notice their odd behavior, but he also brings up the attacks at school. It seems like he is deliberately steering them toward the solution, even though he could have just ignored the topic. It feels like Draco knew more than he was letting on and used this moment to drop hints to Potter's friends. Many fans believe that Draco was smart enough to figure out who was really behind the disguises of his friends. After all, a wizard of his background and knowledge would surely be aware of the effects of Polyjuice Potion. But instead of exposing them or causing trouble, he helped guide their thoughts in the right direction. This could have been his way of not only protecting his family from suspicion, but also ensuring that the danger was dealt with without his direct involvement. Now, let's consider the most intriguing moment, the petrified Hermione. The theory goes that Draco, realizing that the situation had gone too far, decided to intervene. When Hermione was petrified, he supposedly placed that torn page from the book in her hand. This was his last desperate attempt to help Harry and Ron. After all, he knew they wouldn't be able to solve the mystery of the basilisk and stop the attacks without this clue. However, this theory has its weaknesses. For instance, many wonder how Draco could have known about the basilisk. Lucius Malfoy, his father, was involved in the plan but likely didn't share the details of what creature was hiding in the chamber. Moreover, Draco himself probably didn't fully understand what was happening. Otherwise, he might have acted more decisively. There's also another counter-argument. Hermione could have torn the page out of the book herself. Yes, this would be out of character for her, but let's not forget that at that time, she was acting under stress, and her usual behavior might have changed. After all, she had broken the rules before when necessary, so damaging a book doesn't seem that far-fetched for her in such circumstances. Despite these counter-arguments, the theory that Draco Malfoy may have secretly helped Harry and his friends remains popular among fans. It adds depth to his character, portraying him not just as an antagonist, but as a complex and ambiguous hero who may have sought to protect his school and even those he seemingly despised. Theory number 7. Everything has a reason. This theory offers an intriguing explanation for why the Dursleys were so cruel to Harry Potter. According to some fans, it all comes down to the fact that Harry was a horcrux. Yes, the same fragment of Voldemort's soul that resided in him may have affected not only Harry's life but also the people around him. Perhaps this dark, magical element within Harry made his aunt, uncle, and cousin so nasty and aggressive. Think about how the Dursleys acted. They didn't just dislike Harry, they actively hated him. From the humiliations and harsh punishments to constant attempts to isolate him from anything magical. Of course, we tend to think this was simply the Dursleys' nature, But what if their behavior was a result of dark magical influence? After all, we know horcruxes can alter people's behavior. There are plenty of examples. A standout case is Tom Riddle's diary, which took control of Ginny Weasley. The little girl acted against her will, under the influence of a dark artifact. Or consider Slytherin's locket, which not only dampened the spirits of its bearers, but also instilled dark thoughts and malice in them. If horcruxes affected others like this, why wouldn't the fragment of Voldemort's soul in Harry have affected his relatives? Fans who support this theory believe that the many years spent living near Harry turned the Dursleys cold and cruel. This explains why they didn't just tolerate him, they actively sought to harm him. They even locked him in a cupboard, deprived him of food, and refused to acknowledge his rights. All of this mirrors the behavior of people under the influence of dark magic. But, like any theory, this one has its weak points. Let's recall that Professor McGonagall, even before Harry was placed in the Dursleys' home, described them as horrible muggles. She sat on the wall outside number 4 Privet Drive, observing them all day. Even then she noticed their rudeness and indifference, especially towards their son, Dudley. This suggests that the Dursleys were unpleasant people long before Harry arrived at their home. Moreover, Rowling repeatedly emphasized in her books that the Dursleys were not villains, but rather people who didn't know how to cope with things that didn't fit into their familiar world. They were afraid of magic and anything unusual. It was this fear and rejection of the magical world that made them so cruel to Harry. But this doesn't make them purely evil. In fact, we even see some of their human qualities, especially in the last book, when Aunt Petunia shows a small glimpse of regret when parting with Harry. Nevertheless, the influence of horcruxes on people is undeniable, and the idea that a fragment of Voldemort's soul could have amplified the Dursleys' already existing dislike for Harry seems quite logical. After all, they spent 10 years with him, constantly under the same roof. Such prolonged exposure to dark magic could only have exacerbated their natural traits, turning them into the horrible muggles McGonagall spoke of. This theory makes us look at the Dursleys' relationship with Harry in a new light. Perhaps they weren't such monsters as they first appeared. Maybe they too became victims of the darkness that had followed Harry since birth. Theory number 8. The one that even Rowling got tired of. This theory, which seems to have even irritated J.K. Rowling herself, claims that the snake Harry set free in the London Zoo in The Philosopher's Stone is actually Nagini. It sounds crazy, but many fans are convinced this isn't just a coincidence. They like to think that from the very beginning of the story, the author was dropping hints about the future. Let's break down where this theory came from and why it became so popular. Fans claim that Rowling supposedly confirmed this theory in an interview. They say the author herself stated that the snake Harry freed from the terrarium later became Voldemort's loyal companion. Of course, no one can find a reliable source for this interview, but rumors spread quickly, especially on the internet. This theory became so entrenched that many began considering it part of the official canon. Even though there's no clear evidence in the books, many liked the idea that Harry, unknowingly, released one of the most dangerous creatures in the future. It would give the zoo scene a new, darker meaning. However, despite the popularity of this idea, Rowling herself had to step in and debunk it. In 2018, on her Twitter, she directly stated that the snake in the Philosopher's Stone has no connection to Nagini. She emphasized that the snake was born and raised in captivity, which directly contradicts Nagini's backstory, as she was a human before becoming a snake. In The Philosopher's Stone, it is clearly stated that the snake Harry speaks to was born in the zoo. When Harry reads the plaque by the terrarium, he sees that the snake is a Burmese python that hatched in the zoo. The snake slid sadly along the glass of its terrarium, knowing nothing beyond this small space. It's hard to imagine that Nagini could have been this snake. Another major contradiction in this theory is that Nagini is a magical creature with a complex backstory. She was a maledictus, a woman cursed to turn into a snake, and eventually lost the ability to return to human form. This important detail of her origin completely rules out the possibility that she could have been born and lived in a zoo. Nevertheless, the theory continues to thrive in fan circles. Perhaps its appeal lies in the desire to connect small, seemingly insignificant moments to larger events. It makes us think that in the magical world, nothing is accidental and every detail matters. Interestingly, even after Rowling's official debunking, the theory still retains its supporters. It's one of those cases where fans don't want to let go of a beloved idea, even when the author says it isn't true. Likely because it adds an element of intrigue and magic that fans enjoy. However, as much as some fans want to believe in the connection between the zoo snake and Nagini, the canonical story remains clear. Nagini and the Burmese python are two entirely different creatures, and their paths never crossed until Voldemort met Nagini and made her his horcrux. Thanks for watching until the end. I hope this means you found it interesting. If so, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.